The fluorescent lights hummed their lonely song through the empty corridors of Riverside High. Maya's footsteps echoed against the lockers as she made her way toward the art room. Her portfolio clutched against her chest like armor. It was past 11, and she shouldn't have been there at all. But Ms. Peterson had given her a key weeks ago after noticing how Maya would linger after class, reluctant to leave the one place where she felt she could breathe. What Maya didn't expect was to find someone else seeking refuge in the same sanctuary. The art room door was cracked open, warm light spilling into the hallway. Maya's heart hammered as she pushed it wider. And there, surrounded by half-finished canvases and the sharp smell of turpentine, sat Riley Chen. Riley looked up, her dark eyes widening. A paintbrush was frozen halfway to the canvas in front of her. For a moment, neither of them moved, caught in the amber light like insects in honey. "I didn't think anyone else would be here," Riley said finally, setting down her brush. A streak of cobalt blue marked her cheekbone, and Maya found herself staring at it, wondering absently what it would feel like to wipe it away with her thumb. Double quotes. "Miss Peterson gave me a key," Maya managed, her voice sounding strange to her own ears. "For my portfolio. I have to finish it before the scholarship deadline." Riley nodded slowly. They'd shared this class for 2 years, but had barely spoken beyond the necessary exchanges about borrowing supplies or asking for opinions on color choices. It wasn't hostility that kept them apart, it was something else entirely. Something that made Maya's skin feel too tight whenever Riley walked into a room. "I've been sneaking in through the side door," Riley admitted with a half-smile. "The janitor propped it open when he smokes." "Don't tell." Maya couldn't help but smile back. "Your secret's safe with me." The tension broke like a soap bubble, and suddenly they were just two girls in an art room at midnight, surrounded by the evidence of their separate passions. Maya set up her station at the far table while Riley returned to her canvas. For a while, they worked in comfortable silence, the only sounds the scratch of Maya's pencil and the whisper of Riley's brush against canvas. "Can I ask you something?" Riley's voice cut through the quiet after nearly an hour had passed. Maya looked up to find Riley watching her, paint-stained fingers twisted together. "Sure. Why are you really here? I mean, you could work on your portfolio at home, couldn't you?" Maya's pencil stilled against the paper. She could lie, make up something about better lighting or needing the space. But there was something about the late art, about the way Riley looked at her with those impossibly dark eyes, that made honesty feel like the only option. "My parents are fighting again," Maya said quietly. "They've been talking about divorce for months now, and I can't be there right now. Here, I can actually think. I can be myself without wondering if every sound is them starting up again." Riley's expression softened with understanding. She stood, wiping her hands on the paint-splattered apron she wore, and crossed to Maya's table. Without asking permission, she pulled up a stool and sat, close enough that Maya could smell her shampoo, something citrusy and bright that seemed to cut through the chemical smell of the art supplies. "My parents don't fight," Riley said. "They just don't talk about anything that matters, especially not about me, about who I am. It's like living with polite strangers who happen to share my DNA." There was weight to those words, layers of meaning that Maya recognized because she carried similar weights herself. She set down her pencil and turned fully toward Riley. "Who are you, then?" Maya asked. "When they're not around." Riley's laugh was soft and sad. "I'm still figuring that out. But I know I'm not who they want me to be. I'm not the daughter who's going to marry some nice boy from church and give them grandchildren and live the life they've already planned out for me." Maya's heart was beating so hard she was sure Riley could hear it. They were treading into dangerous territory now, the kind of honesty that couldn't be taken back. "What kind of life do you want?" Maya whispered. Riley looked at her for a long moment, and Maya saw something flicker in her eyes: fear, hope, resignation, all mixed together. "One where I don't have to pretend," Riley said. "One where I can be honest about everything." The words hung between them like a challenge. Maya thought about all the times she'd watched Riley in class, the way her hands moved when she painted, the intensity in her expression when she was lost in her work. She thought about the strange ache she'd feel when Riley smiled at someone else, the way her stomach would flip when their eyes met across the room. "I'm gay," Meyer said suddenly, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. "I've known since I was 13. But I've never said it out loud to anyone before. My parents are so caught up in their own drama that they don't even notice me anymore." Which is almost a relief, because I don't know how they'd react. But I'm tired of hiding it, even from myself. "I'm gay, and I'm here at midnight in the art room, because it's the only place I don't have to pretend to be someone I'm not." Riley's eyes were shining, and when she smiled, it was like the sun breaking through storm clouds. "I'm bisexual," Riley said, her voice steady and sure, "and I've spent the last 3 years trying to convince myself it wasn't real, that it was just a phase or confusion or anything except what it actually is. But it is real. I am bisexual, and I'm tired of hiding too." They sat there in the golden light of the art room, two girls who had just shed skins they'd been wearing for far too long. Maya felt lighter than she had in years, as if she might float away if Riley wasn't there to anchor her. "Thank you," Maya said, "for being here, for being honest. Thank you for going first." Riley replied, "I don't know if I could have said it if you hadn't." The moment stretched between them, full of possibility. Then Riley reached out and took Maya's hand, and it felt like the most natural thing in the world. Her fingers were warm, rough with dried paint, and Maya never wanted to let go. "Show me what you're working on," Riley asked, nodding toward Maya's portfolio. Maya hesitated, then pulled out her sketches. They were all portraits, studies of faces and expressions. But as Riley flipped through them, Maya saw her pause. Most of the faces were imaginary, composites of features Maya found beautiful. But some were drawn from life. Some were drawn from memory, from stolen glances and careful observation. Some of them were Riley. "Is this?" Riley's voice trailed off as she held up a sketch of herself laughing, head thrown back, joy written in every line. Maya had drawn it months ago, after watching Riley crack up at something during class, and she'd hidden it at the back of her portfolio where no one would see. "I'm sorry," Maya started, but Riley shook her head. "Don't be. It's beautiful. You see me like this. I see you exactly like that," Maya said. "That's how you look when you're really happy, like you're made of light." Riley set down the sketch carefully, then reached for another one, this time a study of hands holding a paintbrush. Her hands, Maya had drawn them so many times she could probably do it with her eyes closed. "Meyer," Riley said softly, "these are incredible, but they're also, the way you draw me." "I know," Myra interrupted. "I know what they look like. I know what it means. I've been trying not to think about it too hard, because we barely know each other and it's probably weird." And Riley kissed her. It was soft and quick, just a press of lips that lasted barely a second. But it stopped Maya's spiral of words cold. When Riley pulled back, her cheeks were flushed, that streak of blue paint still marking her skin. "Sorry," Riley whispered. "I should have asked first. You were spiraling, and I wanted to." And this time, Meyer was the one who leaned in. The kiss was deeper, slower, and Maya felt it in every nerve ending. Riley tasted like minty ambient water, and her hand came up to cup Maya's face so gently it made her want to cry. They broke apart slowly, foreheads resting together, both of them breathing hard. "I've wanted to do that for so long," Riley confessed. "Every time we were in class together, every time you looked at me, I wanted to kiss you, but I was too scared. Scared you weren't gay, scared you'd reject me, scared of what it would mean if you didn't. I've been drawing you for 8 months, Meyer admitted. "At first, I told myself it was just practice, that you happened to have an interesting face. But I was lying to myself. I was drawing you because I couldn't stop thinking about you. Couldn't stop wondering what your hand would feel like in mine. What you'd taste like if I ever got brave enough to find out." Riley laughed, the sound bright and free in the quiet room. "We're idiots. We could have been doing this for months. Better late than never," Maya said, and kissed her again. They spent the next hour talking, really talking, sharing all the things they kept locked away. Riley told her about the first girl she kissed at summer camp when she was 14. How exhilarating and terrifying it had been. Maya confessed that she'd never kissed anyone before tonight, that she'd been too afraid of wanting it too much. "I'm glad I was your first," Riley said, playing with Maya's fingers. "Even if the circumstances are weird, making out in the art room at midnight, I think it's perfect," Maya countered. "This is where we can be ourselves, where we don't have to hide." Riley's expression grew serious. "We're going to have to hide everywhere else though, aren't we? At least for now. My parents, your parents, school." The reality of it settled over them like a heavy blanket. They lived in a small town where being different meant being a target. Coming out, especially together, would make their lives exponentially harder. "Not forever," Meyer said firmly. "Just until we can get out. We're seniors. College applications are due in a few months. We can go somewhere more accepting, somewhere we can be open. Together?" Riley asked, and there was so much hope in that single word. "If you want to," Maya said. "I mean, we literally just had our first kiss. So maybe it's crazy to talk about the future. But I want to," Riley interrupted. "God, yes, I want to. I've already been looking at art schools in bigger cities. We could apply to the same places. Be roommates maybe, or more than roommates," Maya said, her heart soaring at the possibility. They grinned at each other like idiots, hands clasped tight, the future suddenly bright with promise. A sound from the hallway made them both freeze. Footsteps, heavy and measured, coming closer. "Janitor," Riley hissed. "He does rounds at midnight." They scrambled to clean up, shoving Maya's portfolio back into its case and making sure Riley's wet painting wouldn't get damaged. The footsteps passed by without pausing, and they both let out shaky breaths of relief. "We should probably go," Meyer said reluctantly. "Yeah," Riley agreed. "But same time tomorrow?" Maya smiled. "Every night, until we have to stop." They packed up their things, turned off the lights, and slipped into the empty hallway together. The school felt different now, less lonely, transformed by the secret they shared. Outside, the parking lot was empty except for Riley's beat-up Honda and Maya's mom's sedan. They stood between the cars, neither quite ready to leave. "This is real, right?" Maya asked. "This isn't going to disappear when the sun comes up." Riley pulled her close, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "It's real. We're real. And I'm not going anywhere." They kissed goodbye several times before finally forcing themselves into their separate cars. Meyer watched Riley's taillights disappear into the night, then sat in the driver's seat for a long moment, touching her lips and smiling. When she got home, the house was dark and quiet. Her parents' bedroom door was closed, and she couldn't tell if they were asleep or simply done fighting for the night. For the first time, she realized she didn't really care. Let them work out their own problems. She had something beautiful and secret and entirely hers in her room. Maya pulled out her sketchbook and started drawing. Not Riley this time, though she'd certainly draw her again tomorrow and every day after. Instead, she drew two girls in an art room, hands clasped, faces turned toward each other in the golden light. She drew hope and possibility, and the courage to be honest. She drew the beginning of something that felt like forever. The days that followed developed their own rhythm. Meyer and Riley saw each other in class, of course, but they were careful to maintain their previous distance in public. A casual greeting, maybe a shared smile over a painting or sculpture, but nothing that would draw attention. They were the same strangers they'd always appeared to be, and it was a kind of torture. But at night, the school became their private world. They met in the art room at 11:30, after the janitor's first round and before his final check at 1 in the morning. 2.5 hours of stolen time where they could be completely themselves. They painted and drew, but mostly they talked and laughed and kissed until their lips were sore. "Tell me something true" became Riley's favorite game. She'd ask it randomly in the middle of working on a charcoal drawing, while mixing paints, during a stolen moment pressed against the supply closet door. "I've never felt this happy before," Maya would say. or I count down the hours until I can see you, or I'm falling in love with you. That last one came out during their second week, whispered against Riley's neck as they sat tangled together on the paint-stained couch Miss Peterson kept in the back corner. Riley had gone very still, and Meyer immediately panicked. Too soon? Meyer asked, starting to pull away. But Riley held her tighter. Not too soon, just right, because I'm falling in love with you too. They were more careful after that, as if naming the feeling made it more precious and more fragile. They talked about the future constantly, where they'd apply to school, what cities seemed most accepting, how they'd make it work. Rhode Island School of Design has an amazing program, Riley said one night, showing Maya listings on her phone, and Providence is supposed to be really LGBTQ friendly. New York has SVA and Cooper Union, Maya countered. Plus, it's New York. We could disappear into the crowd there. California has CalArts and SFAI, Sunshine and Acceptance. They made lists and plans, researching schools and cities and apartment costs. It felt like building a life together, piece by piece. And Meyer had never been so sure of anything in her life. At home, things remained tense. Maya's parents had progressed from fighting to cold silence, which was somehow worse. They moved around each other like ghosts, present, but not really there. Maya spent as little time as possible in the house, inventing study groups and volunteer hours to explain her absences. She didn't feel guilty about lying. How could she, when the truth would likely make everything worse? Her parents were Catholic in a cultural rather than devout way, but she'd heard enough comments about those people and that lifestyle to know that coming out was not an option. Not yet. Not here. Riley's situation was different, but equally complicated. Her parents were immigrants who had built successful careers as doctors, and they had very specific expectations for their only daughter: a good college, medical school, marriage to someone appropriate, grandchildren. The idea that Riley might want to pursue art, let alone that she might be bisexual, was incomprehensible to them. They love me, Riley explained one night. I know they do, but they love the idea of who I'm supposed to be. I don't know if they love who I actually am. Then they're missing out, Maya said fiercely. Because you're incredible. During the day, school was a minefield of carefully maintained distance. They'd perfected the art of the casual glance, learning to find each other in crowded hallways without being obvious. A quick look that said, I miss you, or tonight, or simply I'm here. The only person who seemed to notice anything was Jess Martinez, Maya's best friend since middle school. Jess cornered her one day after calculus. Eyes narrowed suspiciously. Okay, spill, Jess demanded. Something's different about you. Maya's heart jumped into her throat. I don't know what you mean. You're smiling more. You actually seem happy, which is new considering your parents' situation. And you keep checking your phone like you're waiting for a message from someone. I'm fine, Maya said, trying to sound casual, just less stressed about college applications. I'm feeling good about my portfolio. Just look skeptical, but let it drop. Still, Maya made a mental note to be more careful. One slip, one person noticing, and everything could come crashing down. In the art room that night, she told Riley about the close call. Maybe we should cool it at school, Riley suggested, though she looked pain at the thought. No more looks, no more smiles. Complete strangers until we can get out of here. Maya hated the idea, but she knew Riley was right. Okay, but here, we don't have to hold back here. Never here, Riley agreed, and pulled her in for a kiss that made Meyer forget about everything else. As November turned to December, they settled into their secret life with practiced ease. The art room became their sanctuary, the late night hours their only freedom. They learned each other's bodies and hearts with equal attention, mapping the landscape of each other's souls through conversation and touch. Maya learned that Riley was ticklish behind her left knee, that she hummed when she painted, that she cried at sad movies and laughed at terrible puns. She learned that Riley liked her coffee black, but her tea drowning in honey, that she was afraid of heights but loved roller coasters, that she bit her lip when she was concentrating. Riley learned that Maya talked in her sleep, that she organized her sketches by emotion rather than date, that she could quote entire scenes from her favorite films. She learned that Meyer was secretly a romantic who loved flowers and poetry, that she had a scar on her ankle from falling off her bike at age 7, that she made the best grilled cheese sandwiches at 2 in the morning. They learned how to be together, how to exist in the same space with complete comfort and familiarity. They learned what made the other laugh, what brought comfort during hard days, what words to say, and when silence was better. I feel like I've known you forever, Riley said one night, her head in Maya's lap as Maya played with her hair. Like we've done this before, in another life maybe. Maybe we have, Maya said. Maybe we're soulmates finding each other over and over again. You don't think that's too cheesy? I think nothing is too cheesy when it's true. The winter formal came and went. Neither of them attended. The Riley's parents pushed her to accept a date from Eric Wong, a boy from their church whose family was friends with hers. She made excuses, too much homework, college applications, not feeling well until they finally dropped it. I wish we could go together, Riley said wistfully as they sat in the art room while the dance happened across campus. Music thumped faintly through the walls, bass notes vibrating in the floor. I wish I could dance with you in a pretty dress and not care who saw. Someday, Maya promised, when we're in college, in a city where no one knows us, we'll go to every dance they have. We'll be so disgustingly cute that people will complain about it. Riley laughed. I'm going to hold you to that. They danced anyway, swaying together in the empty art room to music only they could hear. Maya held Riley close and tried to memorize every detail the way Riley fit perfectly against her. The warmth of her breath on Maya's neck, the feeling of being completely and utterly at peace. I love you, Maya whispered. She'd said it before, but it felt important to say it again now to mark this moment. I love you too, Riley replied. So much it scares me sometimes. Because what if we can't make this work? What if we get separated somehow? We won't, Maya said with more confidence than she felt. We'll apply to the same schools. We'll get in somewhere together, and we'll make it work. I'm not losing you, Riley pulled back to look at her, eyes serious. Promise me, no matter what happens, no matter how hard it gets, promise me we'll fight for this. I promise, Maya said. I'm in this with you, Riley. All the way. They sealed the promise with a kiss, and Maya felt the weight of it settle into her bones. This was real. This was forever. Or at least, it was going to be if she had anything to say about it. December brought new challenges as the semester wound down. Final exams consumed their energy, and they had less time for their midnight meetings. Some nights they only managed an hour together, or just a quick stolen moment in the hallway outside the art room. But they made it work because the alternative, not seeing each other, was unthinkable. On the last day before winter break, Maya found a package in her locker. Inside was a small painting, barely bigger than her palm, of two girls holding hands under starry sky. The brushwork was unmistakably Riley's, delicate and precise, full of emotion. On the back, in Riley's careful handwriting, were the words, "Every star in the sky." That's how much. Maya clutched the painting to her chest, eyes stinging with tears. She wanted to run and find Riley, to kiss her and thank her and tell her how perfect it was. But school was still in session, always full of students rushing to their next classes. And so she carefully tucked the painting back into her locker and settled for sending a text instead. It's perfect. You're perfect. I love you. The response came seconds later. 2 weeks until we see each other again. I'm already counting down. Those 2 weeks were torture. Maya's family took a trip to visit relatives in Chicago, and she spent the entire time feeling like a piece of her was missing. She texted Riley constantly, sent her pictures of the city and interesting architecture, called her late at night when her parents were asleep. I miss you so much, Riley said during one of these calls, her voice thick with exhaustion. She was in California visiting her grandparents, and the time difference meant they were both operating on minimal sleep. My grandmother keeps asking if I have a boyfriend, and I want to tell her about you so badly. I want to show her your picture and say, this is the person I love. Isn't she amazing? What do you tell her? Maya asked. That I'm focusing on school. That there's plenty of time for romance later. All the acceptable lies that keep the peace. I hate this, Maya admitted. I hate hiding. I hate lying. I just want to be with you without all this secrecy soon, Riley promised. Just a few more months. We'll send our applications, get our acceptances, and then we're free. It became their mantra. Just a few more months. They repeated it like a prayer, like a promise, like a spell that would make everything okay. When school resumed in January, they picked up their routine as if they'd never been apart. The art room at 11:30, 2.5 hours of stolen paradise. Then home before anyone noticed they'd been gone. But something had shifted during the break. They were hungrier for each other now, more desperate to make up for lost time. Their kisses were deeper, their touches more urgent, and they had to keep reminding themselves where they were and why they needed to be careful. Sometimes I wish we could just run away, Riley said one night, pressed against the supply closet door with Maya's hands tangled in her hair. Pack our bags and get on a bus and never look back. Where would we go? Maya asked, kissing down Riley's neck. Anywhere, everywhere. As long as I'm with you, I don't care. It was a beautiful fantasy. But they both knew it was impossible. They were still minors, still dependent on their families for everything. Running away would solve nothing and likely make everything worse. So they stayed, and they waited, and they loved each other as hard as they could in the hours they had. The college applications consumed their attention through January and February. They carefully coordinated their choices, making sure they applied to at least 5 schools in common. Their top choice became Rhode Island School of Design, far enough from home to feel like freedom, close enough to drive if absolutely necessary, and with a campus culture that seemed genuinely welcoming. We could share a dorm room, Riley said, poring over the housing information, or get an apartment sophomore year. There's this neighborhood near campus that's supposed to be really artsy and affordable. You're getting ahead of yourself, Maya teased, though she'd been having the exact same thoughts. We have to get in first. We will, Riley said confidently. Your portfolio is incredible, and I've been working on mine nonstop. We're going to get in, and we're going to be free. The waiting was excruciating. They submitted their applications in mid-February and were told they'd hear back by April. 8 weeks of uncertainty, of checking email obsessively, of trying not to think about what would happen if they didn't both get in. March brought an unexpected complication in the form of Derek Santos. Derek was a senior, captain of the basketball team, generally considered one of the more popular guys in school. He'd never paid much attention to Maya before, but suddenly he was everywhere, sitting near her in the library, chatting with her before class, asking if she wanted to study together. At first, Maya thought it was a coincidence. Then he asked her to prom. She was so surprised that she just stared at him for a solid 10 seconds before remembering to form words. Oh, that's really nice of you, but I'm not really into the whole prom thing. Come on, Derek said with his practiced charming smile. It'll be fun. We'd have a great time together. I really don't think. Just think about it, okay? No pressure. He walked away before she could refuse again, leaving her standing in the hallway feeling vaguely nauseous. She told Riley that night in the art room, and watched Riley's expression shift from confusion to understanding to something that looked a lot like jealousy. You're not going to say yes, are you? Riley asked, trying to sound casual and failing completely. Of course not, Maya said immediately. I don't want to go to prom with Derek Santos. I don't want to go to prom with any guy. If I go to prom at all, I want to go with you. You know we can't, Riley said quietly. I know, which is why I'm not going. I already told him I'm not into prom. He's not going to give up easily, Riley warned. Derek always gets what he wants. She was right. Derek asked Maya 3 more times over the next week, each time more persistent. He recruited friends to talk to her, left notes in her locker, even sent her flowers, which Maya promptly gave to the school secretary because she didn't know what else to do with them. This is getting ridiculous, Maya complained to Riley. How do I make him understand I'm not interested? Tell him you're gay, Riley suggested, then immediately backtracked. No, don't do that. That would cause a whole different set of problems. Maybe I should just tell him I have a girlfriend, Maya said. I wouldn't have to say who, just that I'm taken. Riley looked at her for a long moment. Is that what I am? Your girlfriend? Maya blinked, realizing they'd never actually put a label on what they were. They'd said, I love you, and talked about the future and spent every available moment together. But they never explicitly defined their relationship. I mean, I hope so, Maya said. If you want to be, I'd like it if you were my girlfriend. Officially, a slow smile spread across Riley's face. I'd like that too. So yes, I'm your girlfriend, and you're mine. And Derek Santos can go jump in a lake. They kissed to seal the deal, and Maya felt something settle into place in her chest. They'd been dancing around the word, afraid to claim too much or assume too much. But now it was real and named and official, even if it had to stay secret. The Derek situation resolved itself in an unexpected way. Maya finally cornered him in the library and told him, as gently but firmly as possible, that she wasn't interested in dating him or anyone else, that she was focused on school and her art and college applications, and that she'd really appreciate it if he'd stop asking Dot to his credit. Derek backed off after that. He seemed confused, but willing to accept her refusal, though Maya heard through the grapevine that he'd told people she was probably a lesbian because why else would she turn him down? The comment should have scared her. But instead, it made her weirdly happy. Let people think what they wanted. It wasn't like Derek had any proof. And besides, she'd be gone soon enough anyway. April arrived with the promise of spring and the terror of college decisions. Maya checked her email so many times a day that Riley started hiding her phone during their art room sessions. You're making yourself crazy, Riley said. The decisions will come when they come. Looking every 5 minutes won't change anything, I know, but I can't help it. What if I don't get in anywhere? What if we get separated? We won't, Riley said firmly. We're talented, we have strong portfolios, and even if our ISD doesn't work out, we applied to 9 schools together. At least one of them is going to take both of us. On April 12th, the notifications started arriving. Maya's first acceptance came from SVA in New York. She screamed so loud that her mother came running upstairs thinking something was wrong. Maya lied and said she'd seen a spider, but inside she was flying. Riley got into SVA too, and they celebrated that night in the art room with cheap champagne Riley had stolen from her parents' wine rack. They were giddy with relief and possibility, toasting to their future and kissing until they were breathless. More acceptances followed over the next week. Cooper Union said yes. SFAI said yes. They were in. RISD's decision came on a Friday afternoon. Maya was in history class when her phone buzzed with the notification. Her hand shook as she opened the email, scanning for the crucial words, "We are pleased to offer you admission." She made it through the rest of class on autopilot, her entire body vibrating with excitement. Riley wasn't in any of her afternoon classes, so Maya had to wait until lunch to find her. When she finally did, Riley was standing by her locker, staring at her phone with tears streaming down her face. Maya's heart stopped. Riley looked up and saw her, and suddenly she was smiling the biggest, brightest smile Maya had ever seen. "We're in," Riley mouthed across the crowded hallway. "Both of us. We're in." Maya wanted to run to her, to sweep her up and spin her around and kiss her until they were both dizzy. Instead, she nodded and gave Riley a thumbs up and a smile that she hoped conveyed even a fraction of what she was feeling. Tonight, she thought, tonight, in the art room, they could celebrate properly. That night was one of the best of Maya's life. They danced and laughed and cried happy tears and kissed so much that Maya's lips were swollen. They looked up pictures of our ISD's campus on Riley's phone, making plans for what they'd do and where they'd go and how they'd finally be able to just exist together. "This is really happening," Riley kept saying, like she couldn't quite believe it. "We're really getting out. We're going to be free. We're going to be so happy, Maya promised. I'm going to take you on actual dates, dinner, and movies, and walks through the city. I'm going to hold your hand in public. I'm going to kiss you on street corners and not care who sees. We're going to have everything we've been dreaming about. I can't wait, Riley said, then pulled Maya down for another kiss. The remaining weeks of school passed in a blur of final exams and graduation preparations. Maya and Riley maintained their careful distance during the day, but at night, they planned their future together with single-minded focus. They'd be roommates freshman year. Official roommate requests submitted and approved. They found summer jobs in Providence so they could move out early and get settled before classes started. They'd already started looking at apartments for sophomore year, cheap places they could afford if they both worked part-time during the school year. My parents still don't know I'm going to art school instead of pre-med, Riley confessed one night. I keep meaning to tell them, but the words won't come. They're so proud that I got into RISD, but they think I'm going to major in illustration and then get a real job in graphic design or something. When are you going to tell them about the painting concentration? Maya asked gently. When I'm safely 3 states away, and they can't do anything about it, Riley said. I know it's cowardly, but I just can't deal with another fight right now. Let me have this summer of peace before everything explodes. Maya understood. She hadn't told her parents much about her plans either, beyond the fact that she was going to art school in Rhode Island. They were too wrapped up in their own drama to ask many questions. The divorce papers had finally been filed, and the house had become a battlefield of passive-aggressive comments and lawyers' phone calls. At least they'll be too busy fighting over furniture to notice I'm gay, Maya joked. Though there was an edge of sadness to it, Riley squeezed her hand. Hey, we're going to be okay, both of us. We're getting out, and we're going to build something beautiful together. I know, Maya said. I just wish it didn't have to be so hard. I wish we could have done this without all the hiding and lying. Me too. But we did what we had to do to survive. That's nothing to be ashamed of. Graduation day arrived on a perfect June afternoon. Maya sat in her assigned seat on the football field, wearing the required cap and gown, and tried to pay attention to the speeches. But her mind kept wandering to Riley, seated 3 rows ahead and 4 seats to the left. From this angle, Maya could just see the curve of Riley's neck, the way her dark hair fell against her collar dot. In a few hours, this would all be over. They'd be free, or at least freer than they'd been. The ceremony seemed to last forever, speech after speech about futures and potential and the rest of their lives stretching out before them. Maya's name was called, and she walked across the stage to collect her diploma. Smiling for the cameras and shaking hands with the principal, she spotted her parents in the crowd, sitting on opposite sides of the bleachers, and felt a pang of sadness for what they'd lost. Then she saw Riley's family, her parents, sitting rigid and proud, dressed formally despite the heat. They had no idea who their daughter really was, what she wanted, who she loved. The gulf between Riley's truth and their expectations seemed impossibly wide. When Riley's name was called, Riley Malin Chen, Maya clapped louder than anyone else, not caring if it drew attention. Riley crossed the stage with perfect poise, collected her diploma with a slight bow, and for just a second as she turned, her eyes found Maya's in the crowd. That look said everything. We made it. We're almost there. I love you. After the ceremony, there was the obligatory mingling period where families took photos and teachers gave congratulations. Maya's parents barely spoke to each other, taking turns posing with her for pictures that would probably end up in separate albums after the divorce was finalized. We're very proud of you, her mother said stiffly, giving her an awkward hug. Art school in Rhode Island, her father added, with the same tone he might use to say job at the gas station. He'd never understood her passion for art, never seen the point in pursuing something so impractical. Thanks, Maya said, because what else was there to say? She spotted Riley across the field, trapped in what looked like an intense conversation with her parents. Even from a distance, Maya could read the tension in Riley's shoulders, the forced smile on her face. Her mother was gesturing emphatically, probably talking about medical school or the importance of a stable career. Their eyes met briefly, and Riley gave an almost imperceptible shake of her head. Not now, can't get away yet. Maya nodded understanding and let her own parents drag her to their separate cars for separate celebratory dinners. Her mother took her to a nice Italian place and spent the whole meal talking about the divorce settlement. Her father took her for coffee afterward and lectured her about making practical choices in college. Neither of them asked what she was actually planning to study. Neither seemed particularly interested in who she was becoming. By the time Maya got home, it was almost 10. She texted Riley immediately. "How was your night?" The response came 5 minutes later. "Exhausting. Lots of talk about pre-med requirements and finding a nice husband eventually. The usual divorce drama and lectures about being practical. Also the usual. Art room. Give me an hour. Parents are still up." Maya spent the hour packing more of her belongings for the move to Providence. She'd be leaving in 2 weeks, ahead of most freshmen, to start her summer job at a local cafe near campus. Riley had found work at an art supply store. They'd scraped together enough money for a cheap sublet for July and August. A tiny studio apartment they'd share until the dorms opened. Just thinking about it made Maya's heart race. 2 months of living together, of not having to hide, of being able to kiss Riley good morning and fall asleep in her arms. It seemed too good to be true. At 11:15. Maya slipped out of her house and drove to the school. Riley was already there, waiting by the side door with her own key. Ms. Peterson had given her one too, after learning both girls had been accepted to prestigious art programs. "Hey," Riley said softly, and Maya kissed her in greeting, right there in the parking lot where anyone could have seen. Feeling rebellious, Riley teased when they broke apart. Feeling free, Maya corrected. "We graduated. We're adults now, technically, and in 2 weeks, we're gone." They made their way to the art room for what would be one of their last times. The space that had sheltered their love for so many months felt different now. Bittersweet. Soon it would just be a memory. A chapter in their story that was closing. "I'm going to miss this place," Riley said, running her hand along one of the tables they'd worked at so many nights. "It saved us, in a way, gave us somewhere to be ourselves. We'll create new places," Maya promised. "Better ones, where we don't have to hide." They spent the night not working on art, but simply being together, talking about everything and nothing. Riley told stories about her grandmother in California, how she'd been a painter before immigrating to America, and how she'd given it up for practical concerns. Maya wondered aloud if that's where Riley got her talent. "Maybe," Riley said. "My mom has all her old paintings stored in the attic. She showed them to me once when I was little, and I remember thinking they were the most beautiful things I'd ever seen. All these landscapes from China, painted with such detail and love. Do you think your parents will ever understand?" Maya asked. "About the art, about us?" Riley was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know. Maybe someday. Maybe when they see how happy I am, how much this matters to me. Or maybe never. I've made peace with the possibility that they might not be able to accept who I am." "That's incredibly brave," Maya said. "Or incredibly sad," Riley replied. "I wish it didn't have to be this way. I wish I could tell them about you, introduce you as my girlfriend, have them meet the person who makes me happier than I've ever been. But right now, that's not possible. So I'm choosing myself instead. Choosing us." Maya pulled her close. "I'm choosing us too. Always." They stayed until almost 2 in the morning, later than they'd ever risked before. When they finally left, they stood in the parking lot for a long time, neither wanting to say goodbye. "This isn't really goodbye," Riley said. "We'll see each other before we leave. Coffee shops, the park, wherever we can. I know. It just feels significant, like we're closing one door and opening another. Then let's walk through it together," Riley said, and kissed her one last time under the stars. The next 2 weeks were a whirlwind of packing and preparation. Maya saw Riley whenever they could arrange a meeting at neutral locations. careful not to be seen together too often by anyone who might put two and two together. They went to the movies, sitting in the back row and holding hands in the darkness. They had coffee at the chain place to towns over where no one from school would see them. They drove to the beach one afternoon and walked along the shore, pretending they were already in their new life. Already free to more weeks became their new mantra. Counting down the days, Maya's mother helped her pack with mechanical efficiency, folding clothes and organizing supplies without much conversation. The divorce had been finalized just days after graduation, and she seemed hollowed out by it, going through the motions of life without much enthusiasm. "Are you going to be okay?" Maya asked one evening as they packed up her art supplies. Her mother looked surprised by the question. "I'll be fine, honey. Don't worry about me. This is your time to focus on your future. But you're my mom. I'm allowed to worry about you." Her mother's eyes softened. She reached out and tucked a strand of Maya's hair behind her ear, a gesture from childhood that made Maya's throat tight. "I'm proud of you," her mother said quietly. "I know I haven't said it enough. Haven't paid enough attention to what you're doing. Your father and I, we got so caught up in our own problems that we forgot to see what was right in front of us. You've grown into this amazing young woman, and I almost missed it." Maya felt tears prickling at her eyes. "Thanks, Mom. This art school you're going to, you really want this, don't you? It's not just about getting away from us. I really want it," Maya confirmed. "Art is the only thing that makes sense to me. It's how I understand the world, how I express what I'm feeling. I need to do this." Her mother nodded slowly. "Then I'm glad you're going, even if it scares me a little. Letting you go so far away. I'll call," Maya promised, "every week, and I'll come home for the holidays." They hugged, and Maya felt something shift between them. Maybe her mother would never fully understand her, never know the whole truth about who she was. But this was a start. This was something. Her father's goodbye was more awkward. A stiff hug and a check for emergencies that Maya knew was guilt money more than anything else. But she thanked him anyway and tried to mean it. Riley's departure was more dramatic. Her parents still believed she was going to RISD to study illustration as a stepping stone to something more practical. They'd rented a U-Haul and were planning to drive her to Providence themselves, help her move into the dorms, meet her roommate. "Except I won't be there," Riley explained to Maya during their last coffee shop meeting. "The dorms don't open until August. They're going to get there and find out I've been subletting an apartment for the summer. And then all hell is going to break loose. Are you sure you want to do it this way?" Maya asked, worried. "You could tell them now, prepare them, and give them 2 weeks to talk me out of it, to guilt me into changing my plans." Riley shook her head. "No, I'm doing this. I'm 21 by the time fall semester starts, legally an adult. They can't stop me. They could cut you off financially," Maya pointed out. "I know. I've thought about it. I have money saved from birthdays and holidays, enough for the first semester at least. And I got a partial scholarship. Plus there's this summer job. I'll make it work." Maya admired her courage, even as she worried about the fallout. "I'll be right there with you. Whatever happens, you won't be alone." "I know," Riley said, reaching across the table to squeeze her hand. "That's the only reason I'm brave enough to do this." The day of Maya's departure arrived on a Wednesday in late June. She'd said her goodbyes to her parents the night before, preferring to drive herself to Providence rather than endure the awkwardness of having them help her move. Her car was packed to the ceiling with clothes, art supplies, and the accumulated treasures of 18 years. She was pulling out of the driveway when her phone buzzed with a text from Riley. "Leaving in an hour. See you on the other side. I love you." Maya smiled and texted back, "I love you too. Drive safe." The drive to Providence took 6 hours with traffic and stops. Maya spent it alternating between excitement and terror, imagining all the ways this could go right or wrong. What if Riley's parents didn't let her go? What if something happened on the drive? What if they got to Providence and realized they'd made a huge mistake? But stronger than the fear was the hope, the bone-deep certainty that this was right. that she and Riley belonged together, that the life they were building was worth whatever challenges came with it. She arrived at the apartment, a third-floor walk-up in a converted Victorian house, just after 5. The landlord met her there, a friendly woman in her 50s named Carol who didn't ask questions. When Meyer explained she'd be splitting the rent, with a roommate arriving later. The apartment was tiny, barely bigger than Maya's bedroom at home, with a kitchenette in one corner and a bathroom the size of a closet. But it had huge windows that let in beautiful light, and it was theirs, their first place together. Maya spent the next 2 hours unloading her car and arranging her things, trying to leave space for Riley's belongings. She was hanging curtains when she heard footsteps on the stairs, rapid and urgent. The door flew open, and there was Riley, breathing hard, eyes wild. "What happened?" Meyer asked, immediately alarmed. Riley closed the door behind her and leaned against it. "My parents, we got here, and they saw the apartment, and I had to tell them everything. That I wasn't living in the dorms, that I wasn't planning to go pre-med, that I'm here to study painting because it's what I love." How did they take it? About as well as expected. Lots of yelling, lots of crying, lots of "how could you do this to us? And we didn't raise you to be so selfish." Riley's voice cracked. "My dad said I was throwing my life away. My mom said I was breaking her heart." Meyer crossed the room and pulled Riley into her arms. Riley buried her face in Maya's shoulder and started crying in earnest, her whole body shaking with sobs. "I'm sorry," Maya murmured, running her hands through Riley's hair. "I'm so sorry. The worst part is I almost caved," Riley said between sobs. "I almost got back in their car and let them take me home. But then I thought about you, about us, about the life we planned, and I realized I couldn't go back. I've come too far." "What did you tell them?" "That I'm an adult and I'm making my own choices. That I'm sorry they're disappointed, but this is who I am. That I hope someday they can accept it. But if they can't, I'll have to learn to live with that." "And then what happened?" Riley pulled back, wiping her eyes. "They left, just got back in the U-Haul and drove away. My dad wouldn't even look at me. My mom was crying so hard she could barely speak. They didn't say goodbye." "Oh, Riley, I know I did the right thing," Riley said, but her voice was uncertain. "I know I had to stand up for myself, but it hurts so much. They're my parents. I love them, and I hurt them." "You didn't hurt them," Meyer said firmly. "You told them your truth. Their pain comes from their expectations, not from anything you did wrong. You have the right to live your own life, to pursue your own dreams." I know. It just doesn't feel that way right now." They stood there holding each other as the light faded outside the windows, Riley's tears slowly subsiding. Eventually, Maya guided her to the futon she'd set up earlier, and they sat together, still wrapped in each other's arms. "Do you regret it?" Maya asked quietly. "Coming here, choosing this?" "No," Riley said without hesitation. "I'm sad, and I'm scared, but I don't regret it. Being here with you, being free to be myself, that's worth everything." They ordered pizza for dinner and ate it sitting on the futon, talking about everything except Riley's parents. Riley wanted to know every detail of Maya's drive, what she thought of the apartment, what the neighborhood was like. She was determinedly cheerful, pushing through her sadness with sheer force of will. Later, as they were getting ready for bed their first night actually sleeping in the same place, Riley's phone rang. She looked at the screen and went pale. "It's my mom," she said. "Do you want to answer it?" Riley stared at the phone for several more rings before finally accepting the call. "Hello?" Meyer could only hear Riley's side of the conversation, but she could tell it wasn't going well. Riley's responses were mostly yes, and I understand, and I'm sorry you feel that way. Her face was carefully blank, but her free hand was clenched into a fist. When she finally hung up, she looked exhausted. "They're cutting me off," she said flatly. "No more financial support. I'm on my own." Maya's heart sank. "Riley, it's fine," Riley interrupted, though her voice shook. "I knew it might happen. I can make it work. The scholarship covers half of tuition, and between my savings and the summer job, I'll have enough for full semester. After that, I can get loans if I need to. My mom gave me some money. Maya offered, we can pool our resources, make it stretch further. I can't take your money. It's our money now. Maya said, we're in this together. Remember, partners. Riley's eyes filled with tears again, but she was smiling through them. Partners, I like that. They fell asleep that night tangled together in the narrow futon. Exhausted and heartbroken and hopeful all at once, Maya held Riley close and listened to her breathing even now as she drifted off, and felt a fierce protectiveness rise in her chest. They would make this work. Whatever it took, however hard it got, they would make this work. The summer passed in a blur of work and adjustment. Maya's job at the cafe was demanding, but the tips were good, and she liked the steady rhythm of making coffee and chatting with regulars. Riley's position at the art supply store was perfect for her. She got a discount on materials and spent her shifts talking to other artists about techniques and supplies. They established routines. Morning coffee on the tiny balcony overlooking the street. Evenings cooking dinner together in the cramped kitchenette, teaching themselves recipes from YouTube videos. Weekends exploring Providence, finding the best thrift stores and coffee shops and parks. And for the first time in their lives, they didn't have to hide. They held hands walking down the street. They kissed in public. They introduced each other as girlfriends without fear. The freedom of it was intoxicating. I can't believe this is real, Riley said one evening as they walked through a farmer's market, fingers intertwined. I keep expecting someone to tell us we can't do this, that we're not allowed. We are allowed, Maya said. This is our life now. They made friends, other queer kids in the neighborhood, fellow artists, people who understood what it meant to build a chosen family when your blood family couldn't accept you. Maya had never felt so seen, so understood, so free to be exactly who she was. Riley's relationship with her parents remained fractured. They'd spoken a few times over the summer. Tense phone calls where her mother would ask if she'd come to her senses yet, and Riley would patiently explain that she was happy, that she was where she needed to be. Her father still wouldn't talk to her directly. Maybe they'll come around eventually, Maya said hopefully. Maybe, Riley agreed. But she sounded doubtful. Or maybe this is just how it is. I have to be okay with that possibility. August arrived, bringing with it the chaos of move-in day. They packed up the sublet and relocated to the dorms, where they'd been assigned as roommates. The room was small, but they made it theirs, decorating the walls with prints and hanging string lights that cast everything in a warm glow. Their neighbors quickly figured out they were together. It was hard to hide when you shared a dorm room, but no one seemed to care. In fact, several people on their floor were also queer, and they formed a tight-knit group that studied together, ate meals together, looked out for each other. Classes started, and Maya fell in love with everything about RISD. Her professors were brilliant, her classmates were talented, and for the first time in her life, she was surrounded by people who took art as seriously as she did. Riley thrived too, diving into her painting classes with single-minded focus. They still had their late-night sessions, just like in the art room back home. Except now, they worked in one of the campus studios and didn't have to worry about janitors or getting caught. Sometimes other students would join them, and they'd work until dawn, talking about art and life and everything in between. In October, Maya's parents came to visit. It was awkward. They were barely speaking to each other and had driven separately, but they were trying. Her mother brought homemade cookies and asked about her classes. Her father actually looked at her portfolio and admitted that her work was quite good. This is my roommate, Riley, Maya said when Riley came back from class. She didn't say girlfriend, wasn't quite ready to have that conversation yet. But the way she looked at Riley probably gave it away anyway. If her parents noticed, they didn't comment. They took Maya and Riley out to dinner, making stilted conversation about school and the weather and anything except what was really happening. It wasn't perfect, But it was something. After they left, Riley asked, "Are you going to tell them about us someday?" Maya promised, "When I'm ready. When I think they can handle it. For now, this is enough." November brought unexpected news. Riley's grandmother wanted to visit. She's flying in from California. Riley explained. Equal parts excited and terrified. She wants to see the campus, meet my professors, understand why I chose art. But she doesn't know about us, about me being bi. And I don't know if I should tell her. What's she like? Meyer asked. Wonderful, kind. She's the one who gave me my first set of paints when I was 5. She used to be an artist herself. Before she gave it up, I think she might understand about the art, at least maybe about everything. Riley's grandmother arrived on a crisp Saturday morning. She was tiny and elegant. Her white hair pulled back in a neat bun, her eyes the same dark brown as Riley's. She greeted Meyer with warmth when Riley introduced them as roommates, and then insisted on being shown everything: the campus, the studios, Riley's paintings. In the studio, she stood in front of Riley's largest piece, an abstract expression of color and emotion that captured something wild and free, and wept. "It's beautiful," she said in Mandarin, which Riley translated quietly for Meyer. "You have the gift, the real gift, not just the technique. I always wondered if you inherited it from me." Riley knelt beside her grandmother's chair. "Grandma, there's something I need to tell you about why I'm really here, why I chose this instead of medical school." And then, in a mixture of Mandarin and English, Riley told her everything about knowing she was meant to be an artist, about her parents' disappointment, about being cut off financially but choosing to stay anyway, about being bisexual and in love with Meyer. Maya's heart pounded as she watched Riley's grandmother process this information. The older woman was quiet for a long time, her face unreadable. Finally, she reached out and took both Riley and Maya's hands. "When I was young," she said slowly, in careful English, "I was in love with a woman, a fellow artist. But it was China in the 1960s. Such things were impossible. I married your grandfather because it was expected. I gave up painting because I had to. I spent my whole life being practical, being what everyone else needed me to be." Riley's eyes were wide with shock. "Don't make my mistakes," her grandmother continued. "Don't give up who you are for other people's expectations, not even for your parents, who I love dearly, but who sometimes cannot see past their own fears." She squeezed their hands. "Be artists. Be in love. Be happy. That is what matters." Riley burst into tears and hugged her grandmother fiercely. Maya wiped at her own eyes, overwhelmed by the unexpected acceptance. "Does this mean you approve?" Riley asked through her tears. "I more than approve. I celebrate you, both of you." Riley's grandmother smiled. "And I will talk to your parents. Maybe I can help them understand, even if it takes time." That visit changed everything. Riley's grandmother became their fierce advocate, calling Riley's parents regularly to talk about art and love and accepting your children for who they are. It didn't fix everything overnight. Riley's father was still distant. Her mother still struggled with disappointment, but it was progress. By the end of their first year, Meyer and Riley had built something real and lasting. They had their own friend group, their own routines, their own life that didn't require hiding or lying or being anyone other than exactly who they were. On the last night of the semester, they climbed to the roof of their dorm building, technically not allowed, but everyone did it anyway, and sat together watching the city lights. "Remember when we were hiding in the art room at midnight?" Riley said. "When that felt like the only freedom we'd ever have. And now we have this," Maya said, gesturing at the vast sky above them. The city spread out below, the whole world open and waiting. "Thank you," Riley said suddenly, "for being brave enough to tell me who you were that night, for giving me the courage to be honest too." "Thank you for being you," Maya replied, "for making me believe that this was possible." They kissed under the stars, just like they had so many times in that empty art room, except now there was no fear of being caught, No need to hide. They were free, exactly as they'd dreamed. I love you, Maya whispered. I love you too, Riley answered. Today, tomorrow, always, and in that moment, with the future stretching out before them full of possibility and promise. Maya knew that everything they'd been through, all the hiding and fear and heartbreak, had been worth it to arrive at this place. This moment, this love. They stayed on the roof until dawn, talking and dreaming and planning the life they'd continue to build together. Two girls who had found each other in the darkness and learned to create their own light. This wasn't the end of their story. It was just the beginning.